Hello everyone, welcome you all back to the subject of industry engineering and management. This video will continue with Unit 4. The topics which have been marked in red are the ones which we will be discussing in the video. We'll start with cost of poor quality, prevention, internal and external failure cost, quality assurance and quality control. First, what is cost of quality? See, any industry, they will be looking to make sure that the quality of the product is not compromised. So quality, as we have defined, it is nothing but conformance to the requirements. So any industry will always look to ensure that the quality of the product is meeting the required customer requirements. So we are doing so much of manufacturing process. We are doing so much of addition, add-on features. We are providing so many options to them. For every process or every activities involved in bringing out a product, there are few costs which are involved in it. So the costs which are associated with providing a good quality of the product is called as the cost incurred for the product, whereas the cost associated with that meets the required standards, right? The cost of quality is a method for calculating the cost associated with producing a product or services that meets the quality standards. So that is what cost of quality refers to. So how do you calculate this cost of quality? See, cost of quality involves so much of categorizing. But before we start up to that, we wanted to know what basically the industry will be looking for. There are key parameters which every organization or the industry will be looking after. First one is quality, the second one is efficiency, and the third one is cost. So on an ideal case, an industry will always look to ensure the quality is improved, the efficiency is also increased, but at the same time the cost is to be decreased, right? So what are the few examples which you could relate to the cost of poor quality? So any cost which is associated with providing the poor quality of the products or poor services, you call them to be cost of poor quality. So few good examples can be a replacement of a food order in a restaurant, or reworking of a manufactured item and retesting of an assembly or rebuilding a tool. All these things are reworking. They involve additional cost which is incurred to make sure that the poor quality which has been done earlier are rectified. So the ideal objective is to ensure only good quality products are reaching the customers, right? So all these costs comes under the cost of poor quality. So cost of poor quality has been categorized into two categories. First one is cost of conformance and cost of non-conformance. So under cost of conformance, we have prevention cost and appraisal cost. And cost of non-conformance, we have internal failure cost and external failure cost. So how do you calculate this cost of qualities? It is the sum of conformance and non-conformance costs which are incurred in bringing out a product or a service. So what is cost of conformance? It is the cost of providing products or services as per the required standards. So all the costs which are incurred, starting from your manufacturer, starting from your suppliers, starting from all the costs which are involved in any activities or process which are related to doing the process right. It is about doing the process right the first time. The cost is called as cost of conformance. So what is cost of non-conformance? It is not doing the product right the first time. It is the failure cost or the cost which are associated with the process or a product by doing the work repetitively or doing the work again to ensure that the poor quality or the defectives which have been done earlier are being rectified before it is moving on to the customer. So cost of quality includes your prevention and appraisal cost under quality efforts and the failure cost for your deficiencies. We'll now see what are the costs. First, if the cost is related to prevention of non-conformance, if the cost is called as prevention cost. If the cost associated with the prevention of non-conformance is not related to the cost, then you call them to be a appraisal cost, but it has to be related to inspection or testing. If the cost is related to the failure, then you call them to be a failure cost. If the failure is due to internal aspect, you call them to be internal failure. If the failure is due to external aspects, you call them to be an external failure cost. So these are the four different costs which are predominantly involved for calculating your cost of quality. So I'll repeat it once again. The cost associated with prevention of non-conformance. Non-conformance refers to the costs which are spent to ensure that the product is meeting the required cost standard. It is about the cost of doing the product or the process right the first time. You call them to be prevention cost. And if the cost is associated about testing or the inspection which is done to ensure that the quality is meeting the required standard, you call them to be appraisal cost. or if the cost, you see that the product has failed, or if it is non-conforming to the requirement, you call them to be a defective product. And if the cost, you are whatever the process you are doing, all the costs which are associated with redoing the non-conformance, or the process or the cost associated with the failure, is called as a failure cost. And the reason for failure, if it is an internal factors, you call them to be internal failure. If it is external factors, you call them to be an external failure cost. How do you calculate cost of poor quality? It is the difference between the actual cost which is spent to the minimum cost which is required for doing the work. Now, say for example, you want to make a coffee, right? A coffee making process. The actual cost of making coffee. Now, you could take any example of getting a coffee or a tea from a roadside tea shop. The tea is sold for rupees 10, which means that for making the tea, the amount involved is probably closer to 4 or 5. Now, if in case you see that there is a defective in the product, now the product here refers to tea. Right? If you see that any foreign particles or any different particles are inside the tea, you wanted to replace the tea with a new tea, right? So in that case, your manufacturer, here the manufacturer refers to the tea master. The tea master will be replacing the existing tea with a different tea, but at the same time he will be providing the tea only for the same 10 rupees, which means that the cost involved for that particular process or the product of delivering a tea to a particular customer. The customer here is A, right? There are two customers, A and B. If customer A is getting a tea and B is getting a tea, and A sees that there are some unwanted particles or foreign particles inside the tea, and he is asking the tea master to replace it. In that case, the tea master will be replacing it with a new tea. So the cost which is going to be spent on replacing the new tea is going to be an additional burden to the manufacturer. Manufacturer here refers to the tea master. So he is going to spend 2 times the actual cost. So that is going to be the cost of poor quality. So the actual cost minus minimal cost. The actual cost is 8. What is the minimum cost required for giving a tea is 4. So 8 minus 4 is 4. That is going to be your cost of poor quality. If in case whereas for customer B, he sees that the tea is perfect, there are no foreign particles or any unwanted particles over there, then he will directly consume the tea. So the minimum cost or the for manufacturing of the tea required there is 4, right? So that is not going to be your cost of poor quality. Whereas for customer A, the cost of poor quality is going to be the actual cost minus your minimum cost. So all activities and process which are done for that to replace the tea, the time consumed, the cost involved, the work put in by the worker, all these activities and process which do not meet upon the agreed performance or the expected outcomes. Here the expected outcome is an ideal tea, right? So for this, there is a cost which is spent, that is called as your cost of poor quality. Traditionally, the cost of poor quality is seen as something like of this category, where it is only about looking after the waste or looking after the rejections, reworking, recalls, customer returns, inspection costs, which is probably contributing to 4 to 5% of the sales. But actually, the cost of poor quality is something way beyond this, something which is very hidden. The excessive employee turnover, planning delays, premium freight costs, excessive system costs, the high cost due to incorrectly completed sales order, the excess inventory, unused capital, all these parameters, right? Everything is incurring an additional burden to the organization. So all these parameters are adding up to the cost, which is something which is not seen outside. So these parameters are adding up to the cost of poor quality. Hence why it is closer to almost 15 to 20% or 25% of actual sales. A good example is of late we have been seeing so many cars who have been recalling their products back, right? Even very recently, you said that you see we came to news that Maruti is recalling few of its cars due to some issues in its steering, right? Which means that all these costs which are shown here, right? So they are adding up to it. Of course, the cost is not going to be borne by the customer here. It's only going to be borne by the manufacturer. So the planning delay, the customer allowances, the follow-up programs, the overdue receivables, the excess inventory, the unused capacity, cost of failure product, all these things are adding up, which is adding up only to the manufacturer perspective, right? So a cost of poor quality on the whole may look like only to 4 to 5% of the actual sales, but it is closer to 25% of what the sales is about. So This is what the manufacturers and the organizations are looking after to more possible ways of reducing them. Of course, these are very visible. They are not hidden, so they are very visible to the customers and to the manufacturers. So they are something which can be measured. They are tangible outcomes, right? So they can measure it. But of course, these are not measurable, or probably they are not hidden. Hence, why they are finding it so difficult to track this and reduce the overall cost of the poor one. Now we'll see what is prevention cost is about. Prevention cost, as said earlier, it is about preventing the activities and process which are done to prevent the product from becoming failure. So it incurs the costs associated with the design, implementation, and maintenance of your QMS, which is quality management system. So under prevention costs, we have quality planning and quality assurance, where quality planning is a creation of plans for quality, reliability, and inspection, whereas quality assurance, it is about creation and maintenance of quality system. Even the training and development which is done for the personnel involved over there, even that comes under your prevention cost, because that is also adding up to the cost of making sure the product is not getting failed, right? The second category is appraisal cost. So the cost associated with measuring and monitoring activities related to quality, especially with the suppliers and customers evaluation of purchased materials, you call them to be appraisal cost. So under appraisal costs, the cost involved included is the verification process, where you check the incoming raw material, the process setup, the products, all those steps. So you will be spending some cost for it, right? So the cost associated with it is also called as appraisal cost. The quality audits which is done, the supplier ratings, and the prototype testing, everything comes under this appraisal cost. The next category is internal failure cost, the costs which are incurred to remedy the defects which are discovered before the product or service is delivered to the customers. So what are the various categories of internal failure cost? It includes the waste. As said, waste is something, or how do you define waste in industry perspective, is something which doesn't add any value to the product. It is adding up only cost to the product. You call them to be a waste. So any unnecessary work or holding up of stock, or any unnecessary movement which has been happening in the shop floor or in the workplace, which is adding only cost to the product. It is not adding up any value. You call them to be a waste. And of course, the internal failure cost is something, as the name internal refers to all the activities or the process or the factors which are done internally, the rework and rectification. The example which I have mentioned earlier, the cost incurred for Maruti for reworking the defect. They have called back so many of their products back, right? Because they see that there are few defects which have been receiving complaints over the few years. So they wanted to recall few of the cars from the customers. So the rework which is done for removing that, or probably eliminating or reducing the waste, is called or rectification of the process. Even that cost includes your comes under the internal failure cost. What are the external failure cost? The remedy affects the cost occurred when the products or services fail to reach the same quality. So it includes the repairs and servicing. It includes the warranty claims too, right? Even we can claim every product has a warranty. If the product is getting failed before the warranty date, then you can very well go and claim. Best example could be your Apple products. If you see that the Apple product is getting failed, you just go there, claim them, they'll just replace it. So these are the costs which are going to be adding up only to the manufacturers. And of course, the complaints and the returns, all the works which are associated with handling of the customer complaint. And now then, most of the purchase have been through online, and especially through applications like Amazon, Flipkart, the e-retailers. You wanted to speak to the customer service agent, you are deploying few persons over there. There's a few technology which is incorporated over there. There's a time which is spent. So all these are adding a few costs, right? So these costs comes under the category of external failure cost. Of course, the returns too. Even Amazon and Flipkart, you have this concept of returning the product if it is not meeting the required standard. So the transportation involved for returning the product, for delivering the product first, and for returning the product again, even those costs add up to your external failure cost. What are the advantages of using quality cost? First thing is it have a very direct contribution in the profit, and it provides a manageable entity and a single overview of quality aspect. Most importantly, the quality cost prioritizes the problems, and it provides a mean to measure the change or the improvement. It promotes effective use of resources in a way that it optimizes the resources in a way that most of the resources, even the unused part of the resources in the industry or probably in the shop floor, they are being tapped upon, and they have been utilized to a greater extent. The overall equipment effectiveness also comes into play, right? If you wanted to reduce the overall cost of poor quality, you wanted to make sure the equipment is working to the ideal conditions, and it is being utilized to the proper extent. It is not being underutilized. So all these categories, all these advantages it brings in, because only when you start analyzing the cost, if you see that the cost of poor quality is getting increased, you start looking upon the root causes and what are the possible ways of eliminating them. So there you will find that as a result of that study, you may come across this possibility of suggesting few of these above list, where you can use the available resources in a more optimal way, so that the overall efficiency and the productivity of the industry gets increased. Now, a few of the success stories where cost of poor quality has been found to be reduced to a greater extent. So one such is from the US construction industry. This is news from the Bureau of Economic Analysis in the year 2009, who found that the industry expenditures are closer to $1.2 trillion, and out of 5% were wasted on direct cost of rework alone. So they, through effective analysis, they found out that they were able to reduce it. See, 62 billion is not a meager amount, right? It is maybe if you think in terms of hundreds of thousands, it may look very simple, but as I said, on a larger picture, on a bigger picture, if you see, you see the industry is facing 5% of 1.2 trillion is closer to 60 billion. So they found that those amount is only spent for rework. The same thing applies to Australian construction industry, where they found that approximately closer to 12.5%, it's about 4 billion Australian dollars is what being spent on rework per day. And CIBD, the Construction Industry Development Board, also estimated they were spending about closer to 10% of total project cost on rework alone. So that is a place where the industry engineers are finding a greater challenges of reducing the possibility of rework, so that which could help them in overall improvement of quality, as well as which will also help them in increasing the profit margin of the industry. Wherein you reduce the rework cost, then obviously that is going to be adding up to the overall profit. Now we'll see about what quality assurance is about. Quality assurance, properly known as QA, it is defined as the part of quality management concept which is more focused on providing confidence that the quality requirements have been fulfilled. So it is focused on improving the process to deliver the quality products to the customers. Quality assurance and quality control are probably quite similar, but there's obviously few differences too. Quality control, it examines the quality of the end products and the final outcome, whereas quality assurance, it is about the ensuring the process and the components are meeting the required standard during the production stages as well. A good example is in food manufacturing industry. Quality control includes ensuring the product doesn't make a consumer sick. So if it is making a consumer sick, you mean that the product is not of the required standard, right? So you do all sort of testings before the product is reaching the end customer. The testing includes chemical and microbiological testing of the samples from the production line. That is done to ensure that the overall quality of the product is not compromised and the customer is also not falling sick. So the difference between quality assurance and quality control. Quality assurance is the technique of managing quality, and quality control is a method to verify the quality. Quality assurance is more of a process oriented, and the quality control is more of a product oriented. As you see, quality control, as you said, it is more focused towards ensuring the quality of product which is of good quality is reaching the consumers, whereas in quality assurance it's more about the process oriented. Hence here you see about the activities and process which are involved in making sure the product is meeting the required standard. Example of quality assurance is the verification which we usually do, and quality control is validation. They are both are quite different, right? Verification is done. A good example is utilization of your Aadhaar. What is your verification? The verification is your Aadhaar number. What is your validation? The biometric which you are keeping on to ensure that that is the actual person who is related to the Aadhaar number, right? So that is verification of quality assurance is verification of your Aadhaar number through OTP is your quality assurance, whereas validation of your Aadhaar number with your biometric is an example of your quality control. What are the components of quality assurance? You can categorize them to three levels: strategic level, tactical level, and operational level. So strategic level, it is more of a long-term decision making, like it has to be incorporated as a quality policy from the organization. And as far as tactic level is concerned, it is kind of a medium to decision making. where you deploy few of the persons for training the individuals, or you put them under training module. And the operation level, which is the major part where day-to-day operations are getting into the part. So example can be creation of SOP, standard operating procedures, and worksheets for ensuring the product is meeting the required standard. Every process which is done by the individual during the period of time is focused towards meeting the required standards. What are the functions of quality assurance? It is the ideal objective is to do it right the first time, and there is no scope of allowing any mistakes to be happening. So it it is to give the service to company in all areas related to product quality and produce information which are more accurate, reliable, and as well as adequate for the intended purpose. It also helps you to evaluate the performances against a system, probably a system of a standard or a specific requirement of customers which have been displayed or which have been listed, and to ensure that the performance meeting the required standard is what your quality assurance helps you. What are the activities of quality assurance? It starts off with planning, this is the number one. Then it moves to data collection. Then it moves to quality control. Then you create documentation, evaluate what are the processes which have been done. Then you report the activities in on the whole. Right. So these are the various activities which is involved in the quality assurance process. Now, what is about PDCA? PDCA is one of the key important aspect of quality assurance. It was given by Walter Sheward. It is also called as Sheward cycle, and so on. That's another name to it. It's called as a Deming cycle. So quality assurance is defined by this cycle of called as PDCA. P refers to plan, D refers to do, C for check, and A for act. So PDCA is now we'll see about each of these steps probably in a brief manner, because of course this is a very bigger topic, but for want of time and for syllabus constraint, we are looking after to only the brief concept of it. What does plan refers to? First thing is the organization should plan and establish the process related objectives and determine the process that are required to deliver a high quality end product. So what are the steps you take, and what are the objectives you are framing, what are the policies you are making starts with your planning. The second stage is do, where you develop and test the process and do the necessary changes in the process. The third stage is about checking. You have to continuously monitor the process to ensure that there is no deviation from the required standards and the current performance is on par with the ideal performance which have been mentioned. And the fourth stage is your act, which refers to implementation of the actions which are necessary to improve the improvement. So once you start fixing up your quality policy, you start developing all the necessary activities and process to do that. Once you start doing them, you start to check about all the process and to ensure that the things which have been framed are falling in line, they are not moving apart. The last one is once you are very sure about all the process, then you have to implement it on a larger scale for the entire process to ensure that the overall effectiveness and efficiency of the process is improved. Right, we'll see about the other topics in the next slide. Thank you.